you see him, you see her. I got there, they had it taped off, and then I heard this girl say, well, they say it's 2 people in there. I just got numb. I just couldn't believe that this happened, and I still don't.
The maintenance worker noticed that the back sliding glass was completely shattered. They did not respond to him. Both were cold to the touch.
The issue came up of who was actually the owner of the car.
He thought they were doing him wrong, so he wanted to do them wrong.
There was a very strong sense of family. When one called for help, the others came.
He wanted revenge. He wanted payback.
I can't believe this just happened right in front of my eyes.
It's just after 11 a.m. on December 29th, 2020 in Kalamazoo, Michigan. A maintenance worker at the Oak Tree apartment complex makes his rounds for the day.
The maintenance worker was just kind of driving around, seeing if, it's just kind of just a once through the apartment, see if there's anything. And he noticed that the back sliding glass door of the apartment number 1 there was completely shattered out. Obviously, it concerned him very much because this was an occupied apartment. It was a very cold time of year. This was in December.
He contacted his supervisor, who authorized him to go in and make sure everything was okay.
So he went up to the apartment and kind of, as maintenance does, he calls out multiple times just to see, hey, is there anybody home? As he's walking into the apartment, he's just, still being very cautious, just calling out because he doesn't want to, surprise anybody. Just as soon as you're in that hallway, you can see that bedroom, and you could see legs. He was on the bed, and he was clearly unresponsive. He kind of backed out right away. He obviously had a feeling that something was very, very wrong. So that maintenance worker contacted the manager, said, hey, something's going on. Can you please call the police? So that the actual manager of the complex contacted the police department.
A patrol officer with the Kalamazoo Police Department responds. He enters the apartment.
As he got into the bedroom, he observed a man on the bed and a woman up against the wall.
He discovered that there were 2 deceased individuals inside.
They're cold to the touch. A male victim and a female victim.
There was blood and injuries to the subjects. I mean, it was apparent that the subjects had gunshot wounds.
They located the identifications on driver's licenses of the 2 decedents and were able to identify them as Katoya McPherson and Floyd Brescher.
Floyd was a happy baby. He didn't cry much. He walked at age 9 months. Floyd was an A student. He was on the honor roll. He was in the gifted class. He was real smart. Floyd, he loved sports. He was on a basketball team, he was on the football team, and he was on the volleyball team. He played exceptional basketball, and they just knew, he was real good.
In his teens, Floyd had a brief romance with Katoya McPherson.
They've been knowing each other for quite some time. We was close. She used to call me Mom.
The youthful romance ended when Floyd moved to Georgia with his mother.
He met another young lady that he had a relationship with, and he married her. She was a sweetheart. She was really a sweet girl. I liked her a lot.
Floyd had to be at least about 18 when he had his first child. He was just ecstatic. He was very proud to be a father. Like I say, he was very excited when he had his little girl. And then his son, you know, I guess that just was the highlight of his life.
But the youthful marriage ended.
For some reason, unknown to me, they decided to go their separate ways. However, Floyd continued to stay active in his daughter's life and his son's life. He came back to Kalamazoo somewhere between 2009 and 10. Him and Couture got back together.
He moved in with her, and he had told me, he said, she has a little girl now. And he was thrilled about that. She would call my son Dad. And so they were a happy little couple. I was happy for him.
They were like two peas in a pod. They loved each other.
The couple struggled financially, but Floyd always opened his home, and sometimes his wallet, to those in need.
Floyd was too trusting. When it came to loaning people money, helping people, just certain people just took advantage of his kindness.
But keeping Katoya happy was always his first priority.
He couldn't go nowhere without Katoya. When he was with her, she had to go everywhere he went.
In December 2020, the couple took a trip north to visit Floyd's father just after Christmas.
I went to pick up my son and Katoya, both from the bus station here in Kalamazoo. They had went up for the holiday to visit his dad. And here I picked them up from the bus station and took them home.
But the day after they returned, responding officers with the Kalamazoo Police Department find the couple dead inside their apartment.
They tape off the area. They want to make sure they get the perimeter secured, and they call the other investigators to check out the scene.
Homicide detectives arrive.
When detectives first checked the bedroom in which the victims were located, it appeared to be the main bedroom. Had the full-size bed and a TV in it. Laying face down on the bed was Mr. Brasher's, and Miss McPherson was located, slumped up against the wall, just below the window. When looking at them, they were wearing what I would describe as clothes to sleep in. The fact that they were both in the bedroom, to me, seems like they were in the bedroom when whoever entered into the apartment.
They see that there's 7 shell casings around from a .32 caliber gun.
It appeared that once the victims were shot, where they fell is where they stayed.
Floyd Brasher was shot 5 times, and Katoya McPherson was shot twice.
When you go into an apartment and the residents are deceased, it can be very difficult to ascertain if there's anything missing. Because, you know, we as investigators don't know necessarily what was there and what may be missing. So initially, I wouldn't say there was any sign of robbery.
It appears the only thing the intruder was after was Floyd and Katoya.
The sliding glass door was shattered, but that was just how the suspects entered the apartment. I did not see things overturned. Someone broke into the house, ran into the house, shot them in their bedroom, and fled. Just from that very basic description, it seems like this was very targeted. They shot and killed both subjects. It wasn't one of them, it was both of them.
What happened?
4 days after Christmas 2020, investigators in Kalamazoo, Michigan are at an apartment where 36-year-old Floyd Brashers Jr. and 33-year-old Katoya McPherson were shot to death in their bedroom. With few clues to be found inside the apartment, detectives look for witnesses.
We eventually spoke with the neighbor who lived in the apartment next to the victims. That neighbor indicated that in the previous evening, they had heard 6 or 7 gunshots.
Another neighbor was talked to, and they said they heard shots as well, about 6 to 7.
Both neighbors say the gunshots rang out shortly after 7 p.m.
Several officers observed houses that had exterior cameras. One of those houses was to the east of the location, and the camera pointed directly at the back of the apartment. So officers made contact with the homeowner to see if they could obtain video surveillance from that particular camera.
As detectives continue to work the scene, Floyd's family gets word of police activity at his apartment.
I received a phone call from my nephew, and he was crying and upset. He was saying, "You need to go see what's going on over there at Floyd and Katoya's." I got there, I'm looking at the crime scene. They had it taped off. And then I heard this girl say, "Well, they say it's 2 people in there." And I'm like, oh no. You know, I'm thinking, well, Floyd and Katoya, they, like I say, they was inseparable. You see her, you see him. You see him, you see her. So now I'm in tears. And sure enough, one of the officers, he come back and he said to me, he said, "We identify the body." Yes, it is. It's your son.
Meanwhile, detectives get word on the security cameras.
The system was a little older, and the camera footage, especially at night, was not clear, but we were able to obtain the video footage.
They check it around the time witnesses reported hearing the gunshots.
At 7:13:25, the 2 subjects are shown walking towards the apartment complex.
You could clearly see 2 silhouettes that ran up to the apartment.
One was taller, one was shorter. You see those 2 individuals go to the slider back door. They do something to the back door. You can't tell what it is.
At 7:13:47, the same 2 subjects are shown going inside.
About 9 seconds later, you see them both come out, and this time they're running across that area between the slider back door, and they disappear into those woods.
Then, an officer on the scene approaches detectives.
Sergeant White was quite adamant in letting us know that, hey, I had responded here multiple times yesterday.
Katoya McPherson and Floyd Brashers called the police the day before at 8:45.
Mr. Brashers had indicated that there were 2 individuals that had staying with them, that they wanted them out.
They called to get 2 people removed, D'Angelo Davis and Marcus Nichols. Marcus and D'Angelo were homeless, so Katoya and Floyd agreed to let them stay over the weekend. But the victim stated that the 2 gentlemen had overstayed their welcome, and they refused to leave.
When patrol officers arrived, they found D'Angelo furious, but not over being asked to leave.
There was a disagreement between Floyd Brashers and D'Angelo Davis, specifically about a missing vehicle.
D'Angelo was upset because he said they were lying about where his car was. They said it had gotten towed.
D'Angelo didn't believe the car was towed. Floyd told the officer it didn't matter. He explained that Katoya's stepsister bought the car from Floyd, promising to make payments. But before she paid it off, she sold it to D'Angelo.
She had purchased this vehicle from Floyd Brashers, and that she was in the process of selling it to D'Angelo Davis. He still owed a certain amount of money on the vehicle, and she was still owed money to Floyd Brashers.
Therefore, according to Floyd, the vehicle was legally his. At the urging of the officers, Marcus and D'Angelo left.
Now at this point, Marcus and D'Angelo are totally upset and frazzled. They grab their belongings and they leave, and they're picked up by a female.
The driver of the vehicle was D'Angelo's sister, Tanisha. and they did end up leaving the apartment complex.
But a couple of hours later, the officer says he was called back to the apartment. D'Angelo was there again, demanding that Floyd turn over the vehicle.
It was then that Mr. Brashers presented an out-of-state title and saying, it was his vehicle. He then started saying, well, I have the keys, but the vehicle is hidden. He didn't want to tell Mr. Davis where the vehicle was.
The officers tells Davis that, look, this is a civil situation. You're going to have to take this to civil court. Now Davis is getting even more upset and more infuriated. He feels like this is totally unfair because this is his vehicle and it is mine. However, still, there's nothing anyone can do.
The officer reports that the two men left. But now detectives are wondering, did they come back a third time?
I feel that it would be prudent to obviously follow up with them because of how upset he was and the fact that now they're dead, the next day.
All new True Crime.
They didn't tell me anything except that we identified him as being Floyd Brasher. That's all I got from them. And then later he came out and he said, Miss Hudson, it's gonna be a while before they even take the bodies out. He said, you don't need to be here. Just go home because this is probably too much for you. And I was crying then. And so my sister and I just sat there. I got in my car and I just sat there.
So now I'm thinking to myself, I gotta help my sister keep it together. Being supportive of my sister is automatic. I mean, I don't have to second guess it or think twice about that.
I just was shocked. I couldn't hardly sleep. I just was lost. I didn't know. I just was out of it. I just got numb. I just couldn't believe that this happened. And I still don't.
Subway's protein.
Investigators working the homicide of Michigan couple Floyd Brashers Jr. and Katoya McPherson want to question D'Angelo Davis over a dispute he had with the couple about a car.
We did have a phone number for D'Angelo Davis, so I drafted a search warrant, which could tell us within a small geographic area where that phone was at the time. I started receiving active locations for Mr. Davis. Due to the severity of the crime, we were investigating a double murder, and the fact that Mr. Davis had previous firearm possession cases, it indicated that a more serious response was needed. It was determined that the Kalamazoo area Metro SWAT team would assist in arresting Mr. Davis. We were able to follow him for a short period of time and ended up making a stop on him on the east side of the city.
Almost a week after the shootings, D'Angelo Davis is taken into custody without incident.
After his arrest, he was taken to the Kalamazoo Township Police Department. The detective did ask him about what happened that day, or at least his whereabouts of that day. He stated that he had spent time with his family, specifically his sister Tanisha and his relative Trevor. We could verify some of that information because we knew for a fact that his sister had picked him up on the 28th.
Along with Marcus, D'Angelo says they left the apartment complex. D'Angelo says they left the apartment complex and tried to figure out where Floyd hid the car.
He had been driving around with the people in the car. Tanisha was driving the car, it's her vehicle, and they're driving around looking for the car.
But they couldn't find it.
Marcus was dropped off at his sister's residence, and from there, he claimed he spent the rest of the evening with his sister at his aunt's house.
Detective Sergeant Hayner did tell Mr. Davis that he in fact was a suspect in this case. And once he realized that he was a suspect in the case, requested an attorney. Due to the fact that Mr. Davis requested an attorney, Detective Sergeant Hayner no longer questioned him, and then he was transferred to the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Department for his bond violation.
But D'Angelo doesn't remain in custody for long.
2 days later, D'Angelo Davis was released from jail.
With nothing else to go on, D'Angelo remains the only suspect. On January 7th, investigators reach out to Katoya's stepsister, Damania Johnson, the woman from whom D'Angelo said he bought the disputed car.
Damania told me that she had bought that car from Floyd. She had used the car, and she had sometimes driven D'Angelo Davis to work, but was in the process of selling that vehicle to D'Angelo Davis.
Their agreement was for D'Angelo to pay her $700.
When she first made the decision to sell the vehicle to D'Angelo, she said that she gave D'Angelo a ride and that his relative, Trevor, actually went with them. They went to the bank, and Trevor's the actual one who took $500 out of the bank and gave it to her as like a down payment on the car. At the time of the incident, D'Angelo was 24 years old and Trevor was 17 years old. He also seemed to have a very strong influence on Trevor. She then said that D'Angelo also gave her several $100s as an additional payment on the car, but that he had still owed her some money on the car.
When D'Angelo stopped paying her, she stopped paying Floyd, prompting him to take back possession of the car the day before the shootings. She tells police D'Angelo was livid.
On the day before this incident occurred, he had called her multiple times to verify that he owned the vehicle. At that time, she didn't want to get involved, but he was messaging her multiple times. She could clearly tell that he was upset. And a concern of hers was that he messaged her about, if they're going to put me through this, I'm going to be homeless.
He said if they don't give the car back, he would just be suffering, and he would make their life hell.
Kalamazoo detectives questioned Damania Johnson about murder suspect D'Angelo Davis. She tells investigators that he was furious over a botched car sale between himself and murder victims Floyd Brashers Jr. and Katoya McPherson.
She described him as kind of multiple terms, but a really good controlling person, manipulator, but also a mastermind. And going on with my interview with her, she said that D'Angelo and Trevor were very, very tight, and she had seen both of them with guns. We were understanding that there was possibly two suspects involved, Marcus Nichols O'Neill or D'Angelo Davis. So while they were persons of interest, this added an additional person of interest because she had brought up the fact that D'Angelo was very, very tight with his brother Trevor, and that she had seen both of them with firearms previously. We decided we'd go and find Marcus Nichols O'Neill. We had several addresses for him, and after checking several addresses, we located him and asked him to come speak with us, and he voluntarily came to the Kalamazoo Township Police Department. We started talking to him about the incidents of that day. We knew that he was with D'Angelo in the morning, so we just began talking to him about the day, what he did, where he went, things like that.
He admits that he and D'Angelo did go back to the apartment for a third time, around 7 p.m. They parked in the lot of another complex connected to the one where Floyd lived by way of a wooded path.
Marcus stated that they approached the home through the woods.
Then he talks about breaking in the back window.
He admits that he was the one that broke the window in Katoya and Floyd's home, but he can't remember what weapon he used. He didn't know if it was a bat or a rock or what.
He's going back and forth, but then later says it's a bat. He then describes going into the apartment. And this is where some of the information that someone with intimate knowledge of the crime would know.
He also correctly stated what kind of caliber gun was used in the shooting.
He knows the caliber of the firearm used, which 32 caliber firearm was used. It's not a typical caliber.
But as he goes on, detectives note that Marcus starts to get hung up on the details.
We talked to him about where the victims were, and his statement was that he thought one of the victims was in the kitchen. Now we know from the scene that nothing happened in the kitchen. And we start talking to him about how many gunshots were fired. He says 2. He sticks to that number. We know that's not accurate.
He later admitted that D'Angelo was the one to fire.
And were then picked up by Tanisha. He believed that D'Angelo discarded the firearm somewhere in the woods. He talks about how he's shocked and just so surprised about what happened. He said that D'Angelo told him they were going over there to just get the car or find out where the car was, so he didn't expect there to be such violence and to have, Katoya and Floyd killed.
But detectives are troubled by Marcus's confession.
We did have concerns because some of the statements did not line up with the evidence that we had established. But at the same time, the statements were of such detail that we couldn't just put those discrepancies aside.
There is one part of Marcus's statement that police want to look into right away.
Specifically that Tanisha had driven them to and from the scene. And we also knew Tanisha had picked D'Angelo up and returned him to the apartment when earlier on the 28th when they were still determining ownership of the vehicle. So we knew for sure that made sense. So we went and found Tanisha at her place of employment. She said on the 28th, after picking up her brother, they had contacted multiple towing companies and couldn't find the vehicle. She said that she drove D'Angelo around town for quite some time in an attempt to find the vehicle.
But Tanisha says she never went back to the apartment with her brother that night. Detectives think she
speak about the incident, obviously because she was talking about her family. We confronted her with the fact that we had information that she drove her brother to the scene. Once we confronted Tanisha about the fact we knew that she had driven D'Angelo to the scene, she started to admit to what she knew about that evening. When we talked to her about Marcus Nichols O'Neill, she said that they had dropped him off earlier in the night and that he was not involved, and that the only people in that vehicle were her, D'Angelo, and Trevor. To be clear.
Where's Amanda?
D'Angelo Davis indicated that he wanted to file charges against Floyd Brashes for stealing the car. So then the issue came up of who was actually the owner of the car. And Mr. Davis did not have any paperwork to prove he had purchased the vehicle. I mean, it had not been signed over to him. He didn't have a bill of sale or a handwritten receipt or any kind of documentation that he had purchased the car. So Sergeant White ultimately informed him that it was a civil matter and that he could not file criminal charges. Mr. Davis was very emotional, being angry, to the point of actually slamming his fists on his legs as he was expressing his anger.
He did not have a lot of resources at that time, and a loss of like this would have been pretty significant to him. He was very upset about the whole situation. Felt that he was just being completely abused and used.
Subway's meal of the day.
Homicide McMillan about the shooting deaths of Floyd Brashes Jr. and Katoya McPherson. Tanisha tells them that confessed accomplice Marcus Nichols O'Neill wasn't even there. Instead, it was her, D'Angelo, and their younger relative, Trevor.
She admits to driving D'Angelo Davis and Trevor Moore to an apartment complex near the victim's home.
Now, she was saying that she did not know at this point what they were planning on doing other than going over there. She did not say she saw a weapon or a firearm. She said that they took a bat that she keeps in her vehicle for personal protection.
According to Tanisha, Trevor and D'Angelo got out of the car and headed down the path toward Floyd's apartment.
It wasn't very long from how long it took from when they left the vehicle to when they came back. I think it was just a matter of minutes.
And she says when they got back that Mr. Davis made statements about emptying a clip. Davis immediately told her to get out of there. She believed that they were going there to get the car back and only found out that the two had been killed after the fact.
So when they asked Tanisha who does she think pulled the trigger, she stated D'Angelo because he had the temperament, the energy, and the excitement, and he had a motive to do it. According to Tanisha, the real motive for the killing was D'Angelo was upset and wanted payback.
Tanisha is arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Meanwhile, Marcus is released.
Marcus had a brief conversation with the officers, and they asked about his false claim of being there. And he said, you know what? I have no idea why. Sometimes my brain gives me false conclusions.
Through statements given to him by Trevor and D'Angelo, for some reason, put himself at the scene in Trevor's shoes. And that is why he had so many incorrect statements about the facts in the case.
But D'Angelo remains free.
During these contacts, D'Angelo didn't openly admit to his involvement in the crime. However, he showed a great deal of concern and remorse that his sister had been caught up in the investigation. That seemed to be his singular focus.
On March 29, 2021, D'Angelo reaches out, wanting to take some of the heat off his sister, Tanisha.
D'Angelo stated that he came forward because his sister thought he abandoned her, and he wanted to show her that he would never do that. He told the detectives that he did it all. He had the bat, he broke into the window, he was the shooter. He did the entire thing himself.
He then changed that statement, and he told him next that Trevor had the baseball bat, but that he was the person who shot Floyd Brashers Jr. and Katoya McPherson.
Detectives were able to tell D'Angelo was lying. On the surveillance footage, it was shown that the taller of the two men were the one that actually broke the window and went in first. And as they compare the heights of the two individuals, D'Angelo was taller, so obviously he is the one that went in first.
So when confronted, D'Angelo Davis then changes his story, and he indicates that he had the baseball bat and that he's the one who broke out the slider. That when they entered, Trevor had the gun, and Trevor was the one who shot and killed both Katoya McPherson and Floyd Brashers.
D'Angelo hit Floyd in the legs so he could not get up. D'Angelo said Trevor shot Katoya first, then Floyd. He brought the bat back to his aunt's house and discarded it near a basketball court. Trevor sold the gun a few days later after the murders.
According to D'Angelo, the murders were about respect.
D'Angelo felt very disrespected by what happened to the vehicle. He thought they were doing him wrong, so he wanted to do them wrong.
D'Angelo Davis is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. 2 weeks later, Trevor Moore is found.
On April 19, 2021, I was notified that Trevor had been located in a nearby county and had been taken into custody on an unrelated incident.
When Trevor was asked, did he do the murder for the family ties, he said, the family ties ain't that strong. Then he concluded the interview.
He is charged with 2 counts of felony murder. One is for Katoya McPherson, and the other is for Floyd Brashers.
As the trials near, prosecutors approach Tanisha.
Ultimately, we made an offer to her that if she pled guilty to being an accessory after the fact to murder, that the other charges would be dismissed. The other part of the plea agreement is that she agreed as part of the agreement to testify truthfully in cases involving the death of the 2 decedents and D'Angelo Davis and Trevor.
But then D'Angelo's attorney reaches out. He also wants a deal.
D'Angelo was offered a plea deal of 2nd-degree murder if he would have testified against Trevor Moore.
D'Angelo took the deal. However, that deal was dependent on him testifying during the trial.
In March 2022, Trevor Moore goes on trial for the 2020 shooting deaths of Floyd Brashers Jr. and Katoya McPherson.
At the time these murders happened, he was 17, and he ended up being tried as an adult. He was 18 during the time of the trial.
Relatives D'Angelo Davis and Tanisha Taylor McMillan have taken deals in exchange for their promise to testify against him. But at the start of the trial, D'Angelo has a change of heart.
I show up to trial the 2nd day of trial, and that's when I'm informed by his attorney that he's going to assert his right to remain silent.
And that kind of disrupted the prosecutor's flow and theory of the trial, because they had talked a lot about what D'Angelo Davis was going to say during the trial.
D'Angelo's refusal to testify caused a mistrial in Trevor's case in March of 2022.
Having refused to testify against Trevor, in June of 2022, D'Angelo Davis must now go on trial himself.
When we went into that trial, his confession to the police was the cornerstone of the case.
Even though D'Angelo said Trevor was the trigger man, the prosecution paints him as the mastermind and the man with the motive.
Part of the argument that I made to the jury is under Michigan law, there is aiding and abetting in a case. So I believe the evidence showed that D'Angelo Davis aided and abetted in the homicide.
The police officers testifying about the incident that happened the day before, D'Angelo being very upset, being forced off the property by the police. This was his deal. This was his problem he had with these people. This is something that started because of him.
He's the one that directed where the trio went that day. So he was, I believe, the driving force behind each of the 2 murders. There was a very strong sense of family between the 3 of them. So when one called for help, the others came. And I think that that was a dynamic. The others came. And I think that that was a dynamic at play on the 28th of December 2020, that D'Angelo called first Tanisha for help and then Trevor for help, and that no small part based on that family dynamic, they came to assist him.
D'Angelo got found guilty of first-degree murder, got sentenced to life in prison.
That September, Trevor goes on trial again. The defense has the advantage.
Tanisha did testify about the murders, and she did implicate both D'Angelo and Trevor.
But it isn't enough.
The jury found the defense's argument to be compelling. Trevor Moore was fully acquitted of killing Katoya and Floyd.
Tanisha was charged and pled to an accessory charge and spent 1 year in jail. She has since been released.
My reaction was, you gotta be me. I can't believe this just happened right in front of my eyes.
I want people to remember that Floyd was a happy person. He was a good-hearted person. He was, he believed in God. He wasn't perfect, because none of us are. But he was a good person. He really was. And he didn't deserve that at all.
For what?
I heard about it. Please put on a low priority. This because it was not high priority at the time. No one has physically seen anything, just suspicion. So you don't want to rush to a scene like that.
Moments later, a more urgent call comes in.
Hello, 911. Man, where are you at? Where are you at?
He gives the address. It's the same as the first call.
What's going on?
My girl came and my girl's bleeding to death. Please! Tina, please, keep moving, Tina. Keep moving, Tina. Tina, keep moving, Tina. Oh, Lord. Yeah, somebody caught her.
Okay, we've already got police and ambulance on the way.
Now, it's concrete. You know you really got something, so now we got to step it up because someone's in danger. It's time to roll.
When the officers arrive, the male caller meets them outside. He identifies himself as Casey Anuna.
He was very distressed and was screaming for help.
I was like, man, someone stabbed my girlfriend, her apartment number.
One of the officers spots a woman ducked behind a row of cars. Then she takes off running.
You're just thinking maybe she done did something or something's going on because now you don't know.
Officer Brown was able to catch up. He sat her down on the parking lot and began asking her questions. And she immediately just responded that her roommate had been in a fight, was injured, possibly dead, and that she didn't know anything else that was going on.
KC shows a second officer to the apartment.
Officer Christy English ran inside of the apartment to check on the victim and immediately tried to start giving her CPR and helping her. She had been stabbed right above the heart in the chest, and she had several other cuts in her upper torso area.
Casey identifies the victim as his girlfriend, 21-year-old Tina Stewart.
I know she's a fighter. That's one thing I knew. And sometimes, you know, they tell you, pray. So I'm telling God, like, you know, make it happen.
Clantina Tina Stewart was born October 17, 1989, and raised in Memphis, Tennessee.
She was a tough little girl growing up, and that toughness carried her onto the basketball court.
She was a extremely great high school athlete, starting in the 10th grade, 11th grade.
She kind of came in late to the scene, like the basketball scene. Even though she was older than me, I still had been playing longer than her. But when she came, she was a force. Like, it was crazy. She came out of nowhere.
My senior year, you know, she was, you know, one of the top guards in Memphis. And if you're one of the top guards in Memphis, you're one of the top guards in the state. And which, you know, got her a scholarship to one of the best programs in Tennessee.
In the summer of 2008, Tina headed to Murfreesboro to begin training at Middle Tennessee State University.
The men's basketball team was in the weight room. We were lifting, working hard, and then I remember the girls' basketball team came in. We were trying to see who the new girls there, who's new on campus, and things like that. So, I mean, that's where I first initially saw Tina Stewart.
He's a basketball player for MTSU, just like Tina. They hit it off from the beginning.
We both had a passion for the same things. So, and it's kind of rare where you have a person who can share the same things.
She was a free spirit, you know? She wasn't too much, it was kind of hard to tie her down. But he gave her a little balance, because he wasn't gonna be all over the place, and she wanted to be wherever he was.
this love that we had in college, it was, it was genuine. I would say that, definitely genuine.
After 2 years of living on campus, Tina moved into an off-campus apartment. She was paired with a roommate, 18-year-old Shanterica Madden.
Shanterica was a good student, very studious. She had straight A's throughout high school. She had a full academic scholarship because she had worked so hard as a student. They probably looked at the background that they were both from Memphis and thought, this is probably going to be a good match.
Shanterica knew of Tina because she was, popular basketball, popular staple in the community as far as sports. But Tina didn't know who she was.
When it came to personality, Tina and Shanterica were opposites.
Shanterica Madden is a very sheltered, quiet, withdrawn, introverted mouse of a person. She is not someone who walks in a room and you just immediately gravitate toward, which is the exact opposite of Tina.
Tina, she had tons of friends, very outgoing person. A lot of people loved her.
After living together for a few months, the roommates discovered more differences.
Tina was really clean.
You could tell that Shanterica didn't have a lot of life experience. Like she didn't know how to, clean up a kitchen and maintain cleanliness. She was very sheltered at home.
Shanterica's housekeeping irritated Tina. But it was KC that bothered Shanterica.
Shanterica and Tina had disagreements about Tina's boyfriend, Casey Anuna, staying over.
That was a shocker because when I was over there, I was never in the areas long periods of time or, I was always trying to, I'm in the room or I'm gone, I'm out of the apartment. I wasn't trying to be in the same space as them because I understand that, this is not where I stay.
Despite the friction, Tina kept her focus on her studies and basketball.
In the spring, the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders were scheduled to play in the Sun Belt Conference women's basketball tournament.
But just 3 days before the tournament begins, KC calls 911 to report that Tina has been stabbed. Paramedics arrive.
They started doing CPR on her immediately, even though they could tell she's injured pretty bad.
As paramedics load Tina onto a stretcher, KC goes back outside to speak with police in the parking lot.
I saw the stretcher come down, I'm just like, man, I'm praying even harder now in my mind.
Police begin to establish who's who.
You got a young lady was laying there in a pool of blood.
Casey Anuna is the young man who made the call. The woman who is running from the police is Shanterica Madden.
They had no idea who she was or how she was involved.
At the beginning of an investigation, everybody is going to be a suspect.
Shortly after 7 p.m. on March 2, 2011, detectives with the Murfreesboro Police Department are investigating the brutal attack on college basketball star Tina Stewart.
She had a pulse, maybe a faint pulse, and they're gonna keep working on her.
Tina's boyfriend, KC, and roommate, Shanterica, are on the scene when investigators get an update on her condition. They learned that shortly after Tina arrived in the ER, she succumbed to her injuries.
She was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Tina was stabbed from the front and the back. So the wound that was right above her heart is what killed her. She bled from that because it nicked some sort of artery.
The lady The police officer, she's like, she didn't make it. I just broke down.
Both Casey and Shanterica are escorted to the station.
They take me downtown. She been taken in for questioning.
You want to separate the two and get separate statements from each person. That way you can tell what's going on, who's telling the truth.
Detectives go inside Tina's bedroom, where the attack took place.
The blood was along the wall, there was blood on the floor, on the bed. It was a very messy crime scene. This was a very violent attack.
But investigators are unable to locate what caused Tina's injuries.
You're looking for any kind of weapons. You got no weapon at this time.
They spot something suspicious in the kitchen.
When they search the apartment, they find a knife block that is missing a couple of knives.
Investigators also collect Tina's phone as evidence. Other than that and the missing knives, the scene yields few clues.
This is when you got to slow down and take all the evidence and start talking to people one-on-one.
Back at the station, detectives sit down with KC. He explains what led to his desperate 911 call.
Casey had got done with practice, and he and Tina had dinner plans. He sent a few text messages, and the response that he got just didn't sound like Tina.
I get a text back like I'm in the shower. I look at it and I'm just like, you know, I've been dating this girl for 3 years. It's not how she texts.
He stated that she was more emotional. She sent emojis, I love you, more lovely-dovey type stuff, to where this was more generic.
You know, I see you later, not the letter C, she's spelling it out. And this person's not texting like that. I was living with my fraternity brother, a great friend of mine, and I told him, man, I want to go over to Tina's place. I don't feel right about it, you know? And I go to her apartment complex, I touched the door handle, and I was like, you know, I knocked.
Shanterica answered the door.
I was like, is Tina here? She's like, no, I haven't seen her. No, she's not here, I haven't seen her. So I was like, all right.
KC tells investigators that he decided to check her room anyway.
So I walk down the hallway. In the very back room is Tina's room. The door's open, and the TV's on, but the lights are off. So I'm just like, I kind of look back, you know, and I don't hear anything. I don't look down. I don't look up. She's not on the bed. I just like, she's not in here. I just like, you know. So I walk back out, and I'm walking towards the door, and I'm like, you sure you haven't seen Tina? You know, she's like, her voice changes, like, no, I haven't seen her.
KC made note of something he hadn't seen before.
Shanterica, he noticed she had bags and stuff packed too, and about to go out the front door.
And someone tells me, like, turn around. So I turn around and I go back to her room, and this time I turn on the lights. That's when I see Tina laying flat. So the first thing I said, we joke a lot. You know, we play. So I was like, get up, stop playing. Then I see the blood. I rush to her, I turn her over, and I see the blood everywhere. And I'm just like, my mind's everywhere. I'm trying to talk to Tina, like, you know, hold on, fight, you know. Little to no response, but she still some life, you know. So I'm talking to her and calling 911.
Shanterica heard him calling out.
She kind of had her head in the door and saying, it's not me, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. So she takes off. That's when I just kind of go after Shanterica. I don't want her to get away.
Responding officer came to the scene and saw him running after her.
Then I got downstairs, and that's when I was stopped.
You're really just left with a lot of questions. You know, what exactly happened? What was the cause of all this? What went down here in this apartment?
On the night of March 2nd, 2011, police in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, are investigating the fatal stabbing of 21-year-old Tina Stewart.
Her boyfriend, KC, is being questioned, and there's no reason to think that he might have done this. He's cleared pretty early on as a suspect.
KC tells investigators that he can't think of anyone who would want to harm Tina.
Like, I knew everything about this girl, Tina Stewart. You know, she told me everything. So it's like, nah, it was no other troubles going on.
Although KC does admit that tension between Tina and Shanterica was running high.
It was mostly about the cleanliness of, or the lack of, with Shanterica, leaving things around. You know, Tina was a very, neat person. Then it was like taking things or touching things without permission as far as food, and she smelling the marijuana.
Shanterica started smoking weed in the apartment, regardless of whether Tina was there. And that was a big problem for Tina.
For Tina, since she's an athlete, she gets regular drug tests. And we learned that Shanterica is a casual marijuana user. Tina, doesn't want this around her. She doesn't want to end up failing a drug test from secondhand smoke.
And she want to lose a scholarship, and she also want to be in good standing with her coach, because now, if I'm a star player and I'm busted with marijuana, she might not play me, and there go my hopes and dreams.
She's just like, look, I'm not your mom, not your dad. You're in college, just don't do it in the house.
Investigators prepare to interview Shanterica. But first, they speak with an officer who says he paid a visit to the apartment just before the stabbing, at Tina's request.
He was a off-duty officer living at the apartment complex. We call him a courtesy officer. Your job is to answer any call at the complex. Loud party call, 3 in the morning, you go answer. So he got a call from the office manager that there was somebody smoking marijuana at the apartment.
The courtesy officer made his way out there. Shanterica's asking, who called on me for this? How did you even find out about this? And Tina's coming out of her room saying, I'm the one who called.
He told Shanterica to toss out the weed, not to do that again. He didn't make a formal complaint. I think that he was just trying to calm the girls down.
Did tensions between the roommates rise even higher after Tina made the call? Investigators ask Shanterica.
I understand that apparently earlier this evening there was some sort of altercation between you and your roommate.
Shanterica says that shortly before 6 p.m., she was hanging out in the apartment with her friend Nene when the courtesy officer arrived.
I guess my roommate had called the front desk, and the front desk sent the police over. And I talked to him, and he was basically like, if he searched my room and he didn't find anything, then it'll be cleared. And if I told him the truth, so he searched, and he was like, well, you told the truth. And he said, but he's still gonna have to talk to the manager.
Already, investigators have caught Shanterica in a lie. They know that the courtesy officer found marijuana because they've already talked to him.
And after he left, I talked to Tina, which is my roommate. I talked to her. Then I knocked on her door and told her that I need to talk to her. And we talked. And it kind of got heated because we both kind of had attitude. And she kind of shoved me, and I kind of shoved her back. And then next thing I know, we was fighting. She kind of just slammed my head, so she was pounding my head, and I was pounding her face. And just with my hand.
Okay.
And then she pushed me to the ground. When she had my head, she pushed me to the ground, so I was right on the ground. And I gathered her. And she was like, get out of my room, get out of my room. So I left.
According to Shanterica, Nene left the apartment soon after, and Tina was right behind her.
My roommate, she was doing something. I think she was putting on her shoes because I seen her kind of roam around moving, because there's no what she was doing. And she turned down her TV, and she put on her jacket, and she walked out the door.
Shanterica says she also left.
I walked all around the parking lot, kind of because I was trying to get out the nerves out of my system. And I didn't shut the door. I just kind of shut it. I didn't lock it. I didn't bring my keys with me.
And then she said on her way out, she did notice that there was a guy hanging out there with dreads that she'd never seen the complex before.
She says there's a man with dreadlocks who was in the area who was carrying a knife.
When she returned to the apartment a little while later, the front door was open.
The door was still, it was like, wasn't closed. I kind of shut it.
The front door?
I shut the door, and it wasn't closed. It was kind of like cracked, so I just thought she came back.
She says that Tina must have come back while she was gone, and this dreadlocked man must have attacked her.
He black, he got dreads, and he kind of tall, but everybody taller than me. But he got probably like 5'6". And this is the third time I've seen him over there.
Detectives don't buy it. This whole story seems made up and really unlikely.
Now, you're at a critical point right now, all right? You're at a fork in the road, okay? And I want to help you choose the right fork. Something bad happened tonight.
But Shanterica sticks to her story.
All I know, I did not kill Tina. Tina was perfectly fine when I left.
She is very, mechanical in her movements, the way she talks, the way she responded to detectives. During the whole interview process that night with police, she might as well have been a robot.
Investigators noticed something else about her behavior.
During her interview, the whole time she's kind of using a card and kind of picking the blood off the ends of her fingers.
The fight she described having with Tina wouldn't have left blood on her hands, so where did that blood come from?
So you really only took a second for me to know. Hey. That I want you bad. I'll tell you before you go.
The Infiniti QX60. Comfort redefined. Luxury rediscovered.
I'm Chef Andre Rush. I've seen action in Iraq. I've served 4 presidents. Now I'm taking on my toughest mission, rescuing America's failing restaurants. Boot camp is about to begin. Do you want to cook or not?
This guy has not taken any prisoners.
Push it up! How do you know when you give up? I believe in you. I need you to believe in yourself. Let's check out your new restaurant. Did you hear about the plan from TV Wonderland? Sitcoms on the weekends with friends. Matter of fact, let me take you back how it started. She said she liked the Cosbys, but she's living single, but tonight she want a party. Let's have a good time. I'll show you a different world. Moving on up, you know I need a girl. Staying up late watching Sanford and Son. I'm coming, Elizabeth, for it's the big one. TV One, they always get it done. Hit it.
The new TV Wonderland. Fridays and Saturdays starting at 8 on TV One.
Hey, it's Chef Jannard here, and I'm about to take you on an incredible journey through the heart and soul of your favorite destination. I'm talking about Black culture, Black excellence, food, music, Black and brown people that look like me, doing it big. Woo! It's a journey through culture, one bite at a time. I'm about to give you the ultimate Black experience.
I love it. Savor the City, a new series coming in 2025 on TV One.
Hi, I'm Anthony Anderson, and I play an ad executive on my sitcom Blackish, so that means I know a thing or two about numbers. For instance, 8, that's the number of seasons Blackish entertained you. 175, that's the number of episodes we did. And 1, as in TV One. That's where you can now watch all the episodes of Blackish. Up top. Yep. I think that adds up to a good time.
Watch Blackish every Sunday through Friday, starting at 6 on TV One.
Hours after the death of Tina Stewart, Murfreesboro police interview her roommate, Shanterica Madden.
They noticed that she had been absent-mindedly picking dried blood from the tips of her fingers during the interview. They're gonna go hard on her now.
Listen to me, okay? Now, I'm gonna be straight with you, okay? and I've been doing this for a long time, okay? And you've got some marks on your face. I've been sitting here looking, it looks like your cheek might be a little bit swollen. I think what happened was you and Tina got to an argument, got to a physical fight that got a little out of hand. Another thing I find interesting is that you're right-handed, you got blood right here on the crook of your right hand.
She stuck to it for the long time, for the longest, till she finally started breaking down slowly. And finally she said, well, I'm gonna tell you the truth.
When we talked about whatever it was, I turned around and was heading into my room, and I think I kind of bumped into her, and she was like, don't bump into me. And she shoved me, and I shoved her back.
The fighting escalated, and Shanterica knew she was outmatched.
She says that when she and Tina were fighting, she was scared because Tina was an athlete and much stronger than her.
I kept saying, that hurt, because my head started paining real bad. And she had a knife sitting, I think it was on the bed. So, I don't know what she was doing, I think she was cutting something. But she had a knife sitting on the bed, and I grabbed that knife after, because she still had my head down, she was pounding me on the head, and I grabbed the knife and just kind of went like this. Because she was coming towards me, I kind of went like this, and I just held it and let it up, and she fell.
She does admit that she stabbed Tina, but says, of course, that it was in self-defense.
I didn't mean for this to happen.
And the problem with the whole thing is, why didn't you call the police at that time?
I had my phone in my hand. I was like, I need to call somebody. And I was gonna go call the police. I had my phone, but I couldn't find the number that I wanted to call.
Where's the knife at now?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I dropped it or I took it outside when I went outside. I don't remember.
You remember because we didn't want it to be sitting out there in that field or something and some kid get a hold of it or something like that.
I don't think so. Okay. I can't remember.
Investigators get word that officers back at the crime scene may have the answer.
A neighbor saw Shanterica around the dumpster just after this incident occurred. Police check it out. They do find a knife wrapped in a blanket that's covered with blood and is obviously their murder weapon.
This knife also matches a knife found in the apartment.
Investigators confront Shanterica with the new evidence.
They finally went to the dumpster and found the knife and the blanket. So now I got a piece of the evidence. And now I'm gonna tell Miss Madden, I have this.
Shanterica changes her story again.
She does admit that she basically just freaked out afterwards and decided to get rid of the knife in the dumpster.
She didn't call 911, but instead went to dispose of the knife. That puts another dent in her claim of self-defense because it looks like she was trying to hide what she'd done.
Meanwhile, news of Tina's death has brought the MTSU campus to its knees.
The Lady Raiders were well loved. This particular team was very well known because they were very talented and they were just very popular. This whole situation shocked everyone more than I think that anybody really understood.
Police hold a press conference to officially announce Tina's death. They also ask anyone with any information about the crime to call in.
At 6:20 p.m., Shanterica's friend, Renee Nene Reese, calls police.
Renee Reese tells police that she was there when the security officer came to the apartment and when Shanterica confronted Tina.
Renee Reese, friend to accused killer Shanterica Madden, tells investigators that she was in the apartment when an off-duty police officer was summoned by Shanterica's roommate, Tina.
And then as soon as he left, she said that Miss Madden immediately went to Tina's room, knocked on the door, and confronted her.
She says Shanterica was mad at Tina for calling the off-duty officer on her, and they started arguing, and it got heated quickly.
She said she went back into Miss Madden's room because they was arguing very loudly, and she wouldn't be a part of it, and she could hear banging and arguing.
Renee says she also heard someone saying, "She got a knife," and "Stop, my heart hurts," or "My heart is beating," something like that. At some point, things got quiet. Then Shanterica knocked on the bedroom door and Renee let her in. Shanterica said, "We have to go." Renee saw blood on Shanterica's arm, so she asked Shanterica what happened to Tina, and Shanterica said she left. Renee says she glanced towards Tina's room.
She did say that she could see Tina's leg hanging through the doorway. So she did see it, that she was down and injured, so she knew something was wrong.
Renee says she grabbed her purse and headed for the door.
In the living room, she said she saw Shanterica holding a blanket, stuffing it in a big, clear plastic bag. As she was leaving the apartment, she saw Shanterica drop the bag and a piece of knife fell on the floor. Renee says Shanterica tried to hand her the bag.
She asked her actually to throw it away for her. She said, "No, I'm not gonna do that."
Renee left. She tells police that she placed the first call to 911.
Okay. All right. What's your name?
I don't want to say my name. I don't feel comfortable saying my name.
Shanterica tried to get her friend to help her cover up the crime. She didn't call 911. This is not looking like self-defense.
They charged her with first-degree premeditated murder.
News of Shanterica's arrest is another blow to the stunned community.
When she was officially charged, I wouldn't say it was a sign of relief. I just wanted justice to be served, you know?
Tina was a superstar in Memphis. You know, everyone knew who she was.
Investigators focus on building their case.
They know from the start that she's going to show up to court claiming self-defense, so they need to be able to counter that.
Investigators discover a series of postings on Tina's social media from the day of her death.
Before the incident, Tina was on Twitter blasting Shanterica on social media, saying that she didn't care anymore, that she was over it. She was sick of the situation.
At 5:37 p.m., Tina tweeted, "I just called the police on my roommate. I feel like a snitch, but I don't like this."
You could see where she didn't really want to tell on her, but then again, she didn't want to lose a scholarship, so she was put in a hard place. So what do? You do what you need to do.
At 5:58 p.m., Tina tweeted, "Police is here." Then, a minute later, "This gonna be too hot." And finally, her last tweet at 6:01 p.m., "I hope he finds some, please, please."
Tina saw how much she had on the line. Shanterica had everything to lose as well if her parents found out that she was doing weed. So they both had a lot to lose. It was a fire waiting to be started, honestly. Like, it just needed the right match.
Investigators speak with Tina's friend, Scooter Macklin. She tells them she was on the phone with Tina when Shanterica came in to confront her.
She asked Tina why she didn't let her know what was going on, but Tina's response was, "I had already spoken to you earlier this week about this situation being a situation and that it couldn't be one. This is what happened, this is the result." And she left the room. Like, me and Tina started back talking on the phone. She left the room for like 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and then she came back.
Miss Stewart was on the phone with Miss Backlund up to like 6:04, and the phone was disconnected.
And I'm calling back, but I didn't get a response. But by then, I got a text message that said, "Finna get in the shower, I'll call you right back."
By the time she gets that text, police think that Tina is bleeding out and Shanterica is trying to buy time by sending texts from her phone.
She did not try to help Tina. Instead, she tried to hide the truth about the situation.
On March 11th, 2011, 9 days after Tina Stewart was found dead, Shanterica is released on a $100,000 bond.
Shanterica didn't have any history of violence beforehand. She had never been arrested. She didn't have a juvie record.
I was the most disappointed about the fact that she was able to post bond. She posted bond and went to Memphis and went to the mall. My phone was going crazy again. Most people couldn't believe that she had the audacity to just be walking around in the world like that.
On May 9th, 2012, Shanterica Madden goes on trial for first-degree murder.
The courtroom stayed packed more than I'd ever seen it. Just overwhelming the number of people that came out to support Tina and her family. And Shanterica's family was there during the whole trial. Her mom and dad were right there in the front row behind the defense table the whole time.
Just as prosecutors anticipated, Shanterica pleads not guilty, claiming she acted in self-defense. She takes the stand to tell her version of events.
Tina confronted Shanterica and that Shanterica was acting in self-defense and that she just happened to see the knife that was in Tina's room on the bed and then grabbed the knife. The knife was already in Tina's room because Tina had been eating a snack or something and there was a knife on the bed, but it just happened to be there. And so she used that in self-defense in the heat of the moment.
Prosecutors argue that the forensic evidence tells a different story.
The blood spatter showed that Tina had been stabbed from behind initially, and then at some point had turned around and tried to defend herself. That aligns with what the coroner found during the autopsy.
You can see on her hands where she was cut, and she was trying to defend herself from being attacked.
Tina was stabbed in her back, upper torso area at one point, so that doesn't lend itself to a self-defense argument.
They also argue that the knife wasn't on Tina's bed.
Nobody had ever seen Tina leave dirty dishes or food just sitting out on the bed. That was not her personality whatsoever. She was very clean, conscientious about being clean, and she usually didn't eat in her bedroom.
As soon as she went to grab the knife, she was formulating the plan, was their argument. That she had to make a willful decision to pick up the knife and to use it.
Shanterica did not immediately call 911. She did not try to help Tina. Instead, she immediately started trying to hide evidence, knowing full well that her roommate was bleeding to death on the other side of the wall.
On May 14th, the jury reaches a verdict.
The jury found her guilty of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. They concluded that, yes, she was guilty, but they couldn't definitively say she planned this murder.
Later at sentencing, Shanterica received 29 years in prison, 25 for the second-degree murder charge, and 4 years added onto that for the tampering with evidence charge.
29 years versus a person that's lost their life, it's not equal. It's not equal. You shouldn't be able to, she can come out and still be able to at least do something, experience something, whereas Tina can't.
I've been watching the March Madness in the Final Four. I could see my best friend being one of those coaches. You know, I could see my best friend standing out there clapping and supporting some girls and giving them an opportunity to shine and show who they are. And that's ultimately what I feel like was taken from the world.
It was sad to see a beautiful young, girl like that who had such a bright future, who overcame so much, who was the first person to go to college from her family, to die in college. That's not how it's supposed to go. That's not how the story is supposed to end. You know what I'm saying? That's just not how it's supposed to end.
He was living a good life. A steady girlfriend, popular in the neighborhood. He was that kind of guy that everyone loved. But eventually, everything comes back up.
Someone was banging on the door, and when it was open, bullets began to fly. And then he was dead before he even knew it.
You know the old proverb, revenge is a dish best served cold.
I believe that the loss of his mother set him up for years of trauma, and the loss of his best friend was the tipping point.
On the surface, this case sounds simple, but it's really not.
It looks like that we have two individuals, one who was seeking revenge and one person who was a victim. But that's not actually the case.
A little after 9:30 p.m. on March 30th, 2009, Northampton County Police respond to panicked calls about a shooting in Easton, Pennsylvania.
According to multiple 911 calls, a masked gunman stormed into the Easton Cafe. He opened fire on a crowded bar.
The police are on the way to the scene with shots fired. They don't know if they still have a suspect on the scene, how many people are injured, or if anybody's even dead. They're not even sure what they're walking into for their own safety. When the police arrive, it's chaos. People are screaming, running around, crying. And there's a man laying on the floor that obviously took the brunt of this attack.
It was a miracle no one else was shot. There were bullet casings all over the cafe.
The victim is well known by cafe employees. A 24-year-old man named Miguel Aponte.
This was a guy that was a regular at the bar a few times a week. This was a guy that everyone knew, and suddenly one of their own, one of their family, was hurt.
Miguel was born on May 16, 1984, in Phillipsburg, New Jersey.
He had two other siblings. They were close-knit. They spent time together. They were a typical American family.
The family eventually spread out across the Lehigh Valley region, and Miguel quickly formed a tight group of friends in Easton, Pennsylvania.
He was popular in the neighborhood. He was that kind of guy that everyone loved.
Miguel had a girlfriend that he loved very much. Matter of fact, they even had a beautiful daughter together. They had their own little family and were trying to make their own way.
Unfortunately, the pressure to provide for his family led Miguel to make some bad choices. He started dealing drugs in the local Easton area. A life of crime came with risks, not the least of which was getting caught.
In 2006, he found himself with a weapons charge. He was actually sentenced to 6.5 years. But he was released a little bit early from prison. He served about 2.5 years. When he got out, he immediately went back to his family. It was business as usual. It was being a girl dad. It was spending time with his girlfriend and reconnecting over the 2 years that he had lost.
Miguel was really trying to turn his life around. He realized he lost a lot of time with his daughter, and he was working hard to be a good dad and provider.
But his second chance has come to a violent end. First responders determine Miguel Aponte is dead at the scene of the shooting at a bar in Easton. they interview witnesses, hoping someone can ID the shooter.
Police question the bar owner. He says it was a typical night. All the regulars had come in, everyone was having a good time.
The owner tells police that around 9 p.m. he locked the front door, something he did every night to prevent latecomers, and a sign for customers to finish their drinks and leave.
Everyone knew if there was some reason that they had to come back in the bar, they were to go around to the side.
When he heard someone knocking on the side door a few minutes later, he assumed it was a regular patron who'd left something behind. But what was knocking on the door was death.
When the bar owner opened his side door to the bar that night, he immediately saw a man, face covered in a white t-shirt, with a gun in his hand. The owner ducked to the floor and the gunman opened fire.
So police had to ask themselves, was McGill actually the intended target? Or did he happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time? Could they have been wanting someone else and he just happened to be in their seat? Something that we have to look at.
The owner thinks the gunman was a light-skinned black man, but the mask made it hard to tell. It wasn't anyone he recognized, and he has no idea what prompted the shooting.
The bar owner was totally confused. He told police that he didn't have any enemies, that this bar had been open for years. This was a place that everyone could come to and feel safe and be safe.
But Easton, over the last several years, crime has steadily increased, seeing more gang activity and more violence.
This homicide occurred within the Easton Cafe bar, which is located in the downtown part of Easton. It's an area that's well known to Easton Police Department. It's one of the locations that many of our criminal gang members and or those involved with drug transactions can be located.
Given Miguel's history with drug dealing, is it possible his past finally caught up with him?
Miguel had been working hard to turn his life around. He needed to provide for his daughter, but sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes it's actually easier to slip back into your old ways. For the easy money, it's a hard thing to say no to.
You automatically, as a detective, start to think about who is he associated with, who was he maybe fighting during that time.
Pennsylvania police are investigating the murder of 24-year-old Miguel Aponte, who was shot and killed at a bar in Easton. With gang activity on the rise in the area, they wonder if the shooting is part of a drug-related turf war.
Miguel had run in those circles for years, so it's really easy to see how he could end up in the middle of an incident between drug dealers or gangs.
The theory is supported by the fact that, out of all the patrons in the bar, Miguel was the only one shot.
Doesn't make sense the shooter could go into the bar spraying bullets randomly and only hit one person. And witnesses in the bar confirmed that the shooter was definitely targeting Miguel.
Miguel Aponte was sitting very close by, so the shooter came in and had a clear line of sight.
Unfortunately, none of the eyewitnesses can identify the gunman. They can't even agree on a general description.
This shooting happens after hours, and it's a very chaotic scene. So chaotic that people are unsure about the race of the person. The immediate identification comes back as a white person, but some of the witnesses say black.
But they did recognize another suspicious man in the bar that night. A man who seemed to be keeping tabs on Miguel.
He was whispering on his cell phone. He was staring at Miguel. Shortly thereafter, he got off the phone and left the bar. As soon as he did that, the gunman stormed the bar. Witnesses think that possibly this had something to do with Miguel Aponte's murder.
The man on the phone is identified as a bar regular named Frank Barnt.
Frank lived above the bar where Mr. Aponte was shot.
Frank was in his mid-30s. He had been involved in crime pretty much his whole life. He even had convictions for theft and assault on his record.
However, when investigators try to question Frank, he's nowhere to be found. Then, the crime lab delivers its findings.
When police received the ballistics report, it showed that the shell casings had come from the same gun, meaning all the different bullets had been fired from the same gun. However, there was no DNA left on the bullets or any other evidence available.
The only thing that's clear is someone wanted Miguel Aponte dead. To find out who, investigators canvass the neighborhood, talking to anyone they can find over the next several months.
This is a small town, and so police bring in a series of people who are persons of interest.
No one confesses to anything, but over time, a story begins to emerge. One that might explain why Miguel was targeted.
Some people think this was a retaliatory shooting, which was a result of a shooting that occurred several years before.
The original shooting took place in 2006 outside a strip club. Jason Oliver was the victim. He was known as Baby J, and he was well known to the police.
Earlier, what happened to Baby J was he was involved with the stabbing that happened closer to his home. And the people who were involved wanted to make sure that he did not say anything to police.
One night after that stabbing, Baby J was at the strip club with his best friend, Jacob Holmes.
These two old friends got together at a bar for a drink. When they were leaving, they were met by two other men outside. Shots rang out, and Baby J was dead.
That's when Mr. Holmes started to run and was subsequently shot.
In that 2006 case, detectives were able to move fast.
The investigation quickly narrowed down to two suspects, John Logan and Miguel Aponte.
Police arrested both men, but they had no physical evidence implicating Miguel Aponte.
The prosecution made a deal with Mr. Aponte just so that they could prosecute Logan for the death of Mr. Oliver.
Miguel Aponte was going to be a cooperating witness.
In the 2006 shooting, Miguel pled guilty to weapons charges. He only got 2 years in prison. Logan, he pled guilty to third-degree murder, and he got 20 to 40 years in prison.
People knew that Baby J was dead. People knew that Mr. Holmes had been shot and still had pieces of a bullet in his body that he would have to deal with for the rest of his life. People were clocking, waiting for Mr. Aponte to be released.
When Miguel got out of prison, at least one of those people might have been waiting for him, Jacob Holmes. Holmes seems to have every reason to want Miguel Aponte dead. But this new suspect poses a different kind of problem for investigators.
Jacob Holmes was a person who was known to a lot of people. Part of the notoriety came from having an uncle that was famous, former heavyweight champion Larry Holmes.
Larry Holmes is from Easton. He grew up right around here.
The Holmes family came here as part of the Black migration from the South. Jacob Holmes Jr.'s grandparents saw this as an opportunity to achieve the American dream. However, when they arrived here, there were a number of obstacles. A lot of the members of the Holmes family had to go to work early. They had to drop out of school. Larry Holmes found a way in life through boxing and eventually became one of 4 people to knock out Muhammad Ali.
Jacob Holmes Being Larry Holmes' nephew, the former world heavyweight boxing champion, he's what we call local famous. Everybody knew who he was. So the prosecution had to be careful that they had the right person. They weren't prosecuting just because he was Larry Holmes' nephew.
A year into their investigation of the murder of Miguel Aponte, Pennsylvania police have a person of interest. 28-year-old Easton native, Jacob Holmes. They think Jacob wanted Miguel dead because Miguel was involved in an earlier shooting that injured Jacob and killed his friend, Baby J.
Jacob seeing his best friend gunned down and him also being shot, that's a good recipe for someone wanting payback.
On April 20th, 2010, investigators tracked Jacob down for an interview.
When the police initially interviewed Jacob, he said he heard someone went in the bar with an AK-47 shooting it up. Jacob told the police that during the shooting, he was with family all night. And at the time, police actually confirmed that that's where he was.
That particular night happened to be one of his children's birthdays. The family was celebrating a birthday at the home of his father, Jacob Holmes Sr. There are plenty of Facebook photos, family photos that demonstrate that that night, the family was celebrating that child's birthday.
Not only does Jacob have an alibi, both his reputation and his family name make it difficult to imagine him being a cold-blooded killer. When Jacob's uncle, Larry Holmes, became heavyweight champion, he made sure his extended family was taken care of.
We came from poor, but once Larry made it, we all made it. I had a big house and a big yard with the pool and everything. Jakey was born in 1980. And at that time, me and Larry used to roll dice together at Caesar's Palace. I'll shake it for a long period of time before I roll the dice. And Larry said, "Come on, Shaky, roll the dice." And then my son was born a couple weeks later. I said, "I guess we're gonna call you Shaky Jake." Me and him did everything together. When I used to go to the gym, he used to fall asleep on the floor or on the table, and Larry used to be boxing. He was always there with me. He never left my side.
Jacob's mother died when he was young, so he spent a lot of time at his grandmother's house on the other side of town. That's where he came to feel most at home.
When he was in elementary and middle school, he was bused over to this white area, but he would hang out with the people who were in Easton. So he ended up having this divided life. He always had two different sets of friends. So he had difficulty trusting people. He had difficulty figuring out where he belonged.
They didn't care that he was Holmes. He was just Jacob, the local guy that was their buddy that they hung out with.
When he lost his mom, that changed his whole world. And so essentially, when he made a friend, he made that friend for life. And so that really describes his relationship with Baby J.
But as the boys grew into men, they began to head in opposite directions.
Baby J had been involved with people who were known to others as gang members.
We're talking about people that were in the ages of like 18, 19, 21, 22. You know, they were very young, and yeah, they had some run-ins with the police.
While Baby J was becoming more involved in the streets, Jacob was starting a family of his own.
His girlfriend lived in New York, so his first child was born in New York. She had the baby on the 6th of January, like 2:30 in the morning. And he was the happiest person in the world.
But the joy of that moment was muted by another family tragedy.
We were supposed to go back up the following day, but my mother passed away 4 hours after Jakey's first kid was born. Hard on him because every day he celebrated his daughter's birthday, he had to remember his grandmother died that same day.
After the loss, Jacob became even more dedicated to his family and friends.
He got 4 kids, 4 girls, all girls. They all lived with me, and he took care of them.
Also, he had a lot of friends because he was the person you could count on.
So, the murder of his childhood friend, Baby J, hit him especially hard.
They hadn't seen each other in a while. So that was part of the reason why he was hanging out at the strip club having the drink, because they were simply catching up.
Jakey was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But Jacob insists he didn't have anything to do with Miguel Aponte's murder.
Matter of fact, he felt that Miguel had already served his time, had already paid for what he did. And according to Jacob, he really wasn't looking for anything further with the incident.
One thing I made assistant to Jakey that you're gonna help the police. And Jakey did that. There was no hesitating, no street revenge, no trying to go out after him or anything. He did what a law-abiding citizen should have did.
Police have no evidence to refute Jacob's claims, and no one at the bar can positively identify him as the man who shot Miguel.
Even with the police questioning everyone and all the witnesses, there were still no clearly defined leads as to who murdered Miguel Aponte.
Then, in 2013, nearly 4 years after Miguel's murder, police get an unexpected break.
Police will listen to jailhouse phone calls, and they gather some really interesting information that they received from those phone calls.
Detectives in the murder of Miguel Aponte get a break in the case when one of their original suspects, Frank Barnt, the man who was on the phone in the bar just moments before the shooting, is arrested for a different crime.
So what seemed unrelated to Miguel's killing, Frank ended up getting arrested for a drug charge and was at a minimum security facility where he had been for about a year.
Investigators begin observing Frank's recorded phone calls from prison, and here's some interesting information. Family members have reported to Frank the potential of witnesses of the murder of Miguel coming forward to the police.
Apparently he got scared and decided it's time for him to go, so he escaped.
When he's recaptured just 12 hours later, knowing he will face more charges for the escape, Frank is finally open to cooperation.
What he wants is reduced time, and to achieve that, he makes himself a witness in this case.
He was facing multiple charges that would extend his sentence. Frank didn't want to spend his life in prison.
According to Frank, investigators have already found the man who pulled the trigger, Jacob Holmes Jr. Frank says he knows because he helped him do it.
He positions Mr. Holmes as the shooter in the case and himself as a co-conspirator in the case, and explains what happens that night from his perspective and starts to fill in details.
Frank and Jacob worked together at a tree service, and they had gone fishing together at the Delaware River, where Jacob had told Frank that he wanted to kill Miguel.
Frank says on the night of March 30th, 2009, he went to the bar for a drink.
When Frank walked in the bar, he saw Miguel, and he knew he had to do something. And that's when he made a phone call.
And that phone call was to Jacob Holmes.
Watching Miguel walk around town, do what he wants to do when Baby J is dead. Some people in this town didn't like that and may have wanted payback.
Frank says at that point he agreed to help set things in motion. So he left the bar to retrieve a weapon for Jacob to use.
Frank was the one who told the police, I supplied the gun. I had the mask. He provided information on where Mr. Aponte would be sitting, what Mr. Aponte was wearing.
Frank was a regular at the bar, and he knew how the bar operated. He knew how to get the owner to open the door.
Frank claims Jacob used his t-shirt as a mask so that only his eyes would be visible. Then, gun in hand, Jacob knocked on the door. It's a compelling story, but is it true? Witness statements said the shooter could have been a light-skinned black man or a white man. So was the shooter Jacob or Frank? By his own admission, Frank was at least involved.
He admitted to being a lookout and the other activity involved in it. So he was charged.
Investigators want more proof before they arrest Jacob Holmes.
You want to make sure when you charge someone, particularly a homicide, that you have all the pieces together that you need to prove the case. You only get one crack at this.
Police obtain a warrant to search Frank's phone for a call list of the night of Miguel's murder.
One of those phone numbers, Frank called more than 10 times that night.
A stroke of luck gives investigators exactly what they're looking for. A match for that phone number.
They arrest someone else on a drug charge, and they notice that their number matches a number in Frank's phone. And that particular number belongs to Mr. Holmes.
According to the telephone records, Jacob Holmes was, in fact, the person Frank Barnes called multiple times on the night of Miguel Aponte's murder.
That's when they felt that they had enough information to make the formal arrest of Jacob Holmes in this case.
It was during those mid-2000s where cell phones became more and more popular. Previous to that time, to purchase drugs, it was often going to somebody's house, knocking on the door. As cell phones became more popular, drug dealers were obviously using cell phones more. Being interested in the intelligence part of criminal investigations, I took it upon myself to start getting more and more training in cell phone forensics and cell phone records analysis. We started purchasing equipment that allowed us to do those forensic examinations. So as this case unfolded, we started using some of those tools.
Junction. 4 years after Miguel Aponte was killed, Pennsylvania police have 2 suspects in custody. The alleged gunman, Jacob Holmes, the man who turned him in, confessed co-conspirator Frank Barnes. But Jacob continues to insist he's innocent.
When the police brought Mr. Holmes in, his story hadn't changed from the very first time that he talked to police. One of his daughters was having a birthday party that night. As typical in the Holmes family, and it's a very large family, the family was celebrating a birthday at the home of his father.
Frank's story, however, begins to change once he realizes he's also being charged with murder.
Frank's not the brightest bulb in the box. He starts backtracking and trying to take care of himself.
Each time he told the story, he tried to convince the police that he had less and less and less involvement, understanding that the more he talked, the more he implicated himself.
But his changing story also makes him a less believable witness against Jacob Holmes.
Right now, Frank's the only one that can put Jacob at the scene with the gun. Police don't need him changing his testimony on the stand.
Fortunately, a solution soon presents itself.
The police listen to more of Frank's phone calls, and they realize that there's someone else out there that knows what happened that night.
Police heard him talking on the phone to another family member, advising that family member to make sure that his ex-girlfriend stayed in Puerto Rico.
Frank wanted his girlfriend, Carla Miller, out of the country, so she couldn't tell the police what she knew.
Once the police heard those particular phone calls and identified her as a witness, they needed her to come in and convince Frank to continue to cooperate. They found her in Puerto Rico and brought her back.
Carla confirms much of Frank's story, becoming a second witness to what happened that night. According to Carla, Frank went out alone on the night of March 30th, 2009. But shortly after 9:30 p.m., he called her for a ride.
Carla picked up Frank and Jacob, and they were in a good mood. They were cutting up and laughing. They were really happy about something that had happened.
Carla overheard Frank and Jakey yelling at the top of their lungs that payback is a bitch, and that they agreed with each other to take whatever happened to the grave with them.
Carla says the morning after they dropped Jacob off, Frank had her drive him to a nearby park where she watched him throw a handgun into the Delaware River.
Carl said Frank was on the phone talking to someone. He told them on the phone, "Don't worry about it. It's taken care of. Everything's good."
Then Frank told her she had to get out of town.
Frank had instructed her to go to Puerto Rico and to stay there. He was concerned that she might talk.
Ironically, being in Puerto Rico and giving herself time to really think about the situation, she wanted to do the right thing. She wanted to do right by Miguel Aponte.
There are now 2 potential witnesses who can testify against Jacob Holmes. Unfortunately, their statements are still the only evidence prosecutors have.
Numerous searches of the river were conducted to locate the firearm. And eventually a firearm was located, but it was not the same firearm involved in this investigation.
But then evidence develops in a new form when forensic specialists complete the analysis of Jacob's phone records, which show what towers his phone pinged off.
One of the first things that I do when I obtain cell phone records in a criminal investigation is I try to establish patterns. I analyzed Jacob Holmes' cell phone records, and I was able to identify that one specific cell phone tower in the Southside Easton area was likely Jacob Holmes' home tower. Based on that information, now I know where he likely lives, and then I look at the cell phone towers most frequently used. That gives me an idea where his phone is normally at.
And on the night Miguel Aponte was shot, Jacob's phone wasn't near the birthday party where he said he was.
Around the time of the homicide, his phone is utilizing a tower in the downtown Easton area, and more specifically, a sector of that tower, which would likely cover the area of Easton Cafe.
It's enough for prosecutors to move ahead with murder charges against Jacob Holmes. Frank Barnt ultimately pleads guilty to conspiracy charges. Jacob Holmes pleads not guilty and faces trial. A trial that will literally be a fight for his life.
The prosecutors were seeking a death penalty for this case because of the involvement of 12 other potential victims.
In December 2020, more than 11 years after Miguel Aponte was gunned down, Jacob Holmes Jr. goes to trial, charged with first-degree murder. But it's no slam dunk, with little physical evidence and witnesses with conflicting accounts.
When you picked up the newspaper, it looks like to the outside person that we have 2 individuals, one who was seeking revenge and one person who was a victim. But that's not actually the case. There were a series of incidents that happened that brought these 2 gentlemen together, that started with people who were unknown to either one of them. And so what became important in this case was to weigh, for not only the defendant, but also for the sake of the victim, what was going to produce a fair and just outcome. There were lots of questions at the time of trial. There were inconsistencies, but the story of revenge was the one that was sewn by the prosecutor, that was sewn by the police officers, that was connected back to the series of shootings.
Prosecutors described Jacob as a man so angered by the murder of his childhood friend, Baby J, that he laid in wait for 2.5 years to kill Miguel Aponte in retaliation. Jacob's cell phone places him at the scene of the crime, and his confessed co-conspirator, Frank Barnt, provides eyewitness testimony.
What they were able to show was that Frank and Mr. Holmes had communication on the night in question that established that they were together that night long enough where Frank could hand Mr. Holmes a weapon, direct him to where Mr. Aponte was sitting that night in the bar.
You have to remember, when you're relying on testimony of folks who told lots of different stories, you need to have corroborating. So the forensics evidence, as in many cases, and in this case, played a crucial role of corroborating the eyewitness testimony. We also have a ping on a cell tower at exactly this time to corroborate that evidence. One of the fears that every prosecutor has, how's this going to play at trial when you have a witness who told you a couple of different stories and now you want the jury to believe the last one?
The defense also points out that Jacob isn't the only one with motive to kill Aponte.
People were waiting for Mr. Aponte to be released. People were watching his activities. One of those people was Frank. Frank was part of the group that Baby J was involved with, and he was upset about what happened.
And some witnesses described the shooter as a white man, which would match Frank, but not Jacob. The jury ultimately sides with the prosecution.
Since Mr. Holmes, in his communication with the police, had never offered anything that was specific enough to place him outside of the circle of circumstances, it was enough to convince a jury that Mr. Holmes was in fact guilty of the shooting of Mr. Aponte. The second phase of the trial, they then had to decide if he would be sentenced to death row or if he would have a life sentence. The types of stories that you'll hear about Jakey are pretty consistent. And what is consistent in the description of him is his role as a father. He was not somebody who was in the streets. He was not somebody who was a thug. He was somebody you could trust with your last dime.
Once my wife passed away, it hurt him. And things haven't been the greatest for Jakey. Once he got hurt, but in my heart, and I can guarantee you in a lot of people's heart, Jakey's a good guy.
At the conclusion of that phase of the trial, the jury determined that he would have a life sentence. This meant that to a jury who went back to deliberate, these were reasons why he should in fact be given a second chance.
For his role in the murder, Frank Barnt receives a sentence of 16 to 42 years in prison. But the outcome of this case remains controversial.
This homicide was quite alarming for the community.
These were young men that decided to shoot it out rather than talk it out, and it ended in senseless violence.
Unexpected tragedy.
She just found her husband unresponsive.
She had suspected there was some foul play.
We went like this, and we went.
When police launch their investigation, they'll discover a sophisticated killer who will do anything to evade justice.
She said she got a phone call from an anonymous number. It was a male voice.
All I heard was, ask them about Tennessee.
She believed that he may have been poisoned.
We were totally shocked.
This crime was planned out and premeditated.
But the true extent of their plan was still unfolding.
They tried to recruit somebody to kill a key witness.
Hey, listen, something's happened to your friend.
The judge said, I have never witnessed such a stone-cold person. It's disgusting.
September 9th, 2000, Montebello, California. It's a quiet evening in this charming community located just a few miles from the heart of downtown LA.
Montebello is a completely different world when it comes to the greater Los Angeles area. It's kind of more like a suburb area.
Many families come to enjoy some of the peace outside of being in the city.
But at 3 a.m., the peaceful night is interrupted when local resident Angelina Rodriguez makes a desperate call to 911.
I just found my husband on the floor and he's not breathing. I need help right now.
To 911 operators, it's clear time is of the essence.
Police were immediately dispatched to the home.
When first responders arrive, it's just as Angelina claimed. Her husband, Frank, is completely unresponsive.
They found him on the side of his bed, as if he had collapsed while trying to get up.
Do you know how he ended up on the floor?
I don't know, I just found him like that.
They do everything in their power to try and provide first aid, to try and resuscitate him, but Frank Rodriguez is pronounced dead on the scene.
Time of death, 3:19.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry, man.
Frank.
Navy veteran Frank Rodriguez balanced his strong sense of responsibility with a gentle spirit.
He was kind. He would never hurt anybody, and overall, just a person that everybody wanted to be around. Frank was the man.
Frank was also a devout Christian. His religion and living out his faith was very important to him.
He didn't smoke, drink, do drugs.
In 1996, after a successful 10-year career in the armed forces, Frank decided it was time to pursue his true calling.
He always loved kids and wanted to do something that would make a difference in his community. And he felt that working with children, he could make a large impact in young people's lives.
So when Frank secured a job at a private school in California's Central Coast, he was overjoyed.
He landed a teaching job in San Luis Obispo, teaching at Angel Gate Academy.
Angel Gate is through the National Guard. It's a program for troubled youth that needs some rehabilitating.
So when they came there, Frank would teach them basically life skills, how to get out of trouble, make a life for yourself, and teach them how to be a person instead of what they were doing on the streets.
And for the first time in his life, he found like he really, truly found his purpose.
But purpose wasn't all Frank found at his new job. He also found love.
We still on for dinner tonight?
Absolutely.
He started dating a fellow school employee named Angelina Morales.
She worked somewhere in the kitchen area, serving food. He thought she was beautiful.
Angelina was also a devout Christian, just like Frank.
He saw a woman who was just as much passionate and in love with God as he was, and Frank fell hard.
Well, I'm gonna let you get back to it, and I'll see you later.
Sounds good. I'll come get you as soon as I'm done with these papers.
They seemed to really be in love. Frank was always looking for his love of his life, and they seemed happy.
After a whirlwind romance, the happy couple tied the knot in April of 2000, just 3 months after they met.
Frank and Angelina may have moved fast, but they were so in love they couldn't bear to wait any longer.
Shortly after they got married, Frank also received a new position in Los Angeles.
The couple picked up and moved 200 miles south to the LA suburb of Montebello.
The two of them are headed to the suburbs to build this life together.
But just 6 months after saying I do, it appears Frank's heart has stopped beating.
Angelina found him unresponsive on the floor of their bedroom.
Time of death, 3:19.
I'm so sorry.
At first, no one is sure how Frank died.
There was no obvious lacerations. There was no obvious abrasions.
Was it a medical emergency that claimed his life? Maybe a heart attack? A brain aneurysm?
But Angelina insists it was something else.
Somebody did this to him. This was no accident.
Angelina Rodriguez had suspected there was some foul play possibly in her husband's death.
She was pretty sure that somebody had poisoned my brother.
Fall of 2000, 41-year-old Navy veteran Frank Rodriguez was living a comfortable suburban life with his new bride, Angelina Rodriguez.
It seemed like things were very promising and that they were going to live a life happily ever after.
But now, Frank has been found dead in the newlyweds' Montebello, California home.
He didn't have any visible injuries or signs of foul play.
Was it a medical emergency that claimed his life? Maybe a heart attack? A brain aneurysm?
According to Angelina, there's a more nefarious possibility.
She was pretty sure that somebody had poisoned my brother.
This was no accident. I can feel it.
At this point, emotions are high, so maybe Angelina is just overreacting, but investigators want to see if there's any validity to her theory.
While Frank's body is transported to the coroner's office for an autopsy, Angelina accompanies officers back to the station for a sit-down with detectives.
Hi, Angelina, nice to meet you. Very good, let's rush.
Investigators cut right to the chase.
You believe there's a possibility that your husband was poisoned? Yes, sir.
Angelina informed the police that Frank was extremely healthy, but over the last several days, he became gravely ill. He was throwing up every half hour, extremely sick, vomiting, and diarrhea.
If you want to go to the doctor, he goes, no, I'm going to go talk. Typical stubborn man.
But 2 days before his death, Frank's symptoms seemed to be getting worse, and Angelina knew she had to act fast.
And it was just paler than anything. And I said, that's it. I'll take him to the doctor.
Doctors ran all the standard tests, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. They said Frank probably just had food poisoning or maybe a stomach flu.
Doctor said you can go home as long as you get rest, get food, take your medicine the way you go.
Angelina says when Frank returned from the hospital, she continued nursing him back to health, and he seemed to be improving.
Well, I'm gonna get out of your space so you can get some rest, but if you need anything else, just give me a shout.
Sounds good, darling.
I'm thinking the worst is over. And now I can just, relax, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep on the couch. And then I woke up at about 3, and I said, time for me to go to bed. And that's what I thought of.
Frank? Frank!
As for why Angelina now suspects foul play in her husband's death, she says it has everything to do with the timing of when Frank got sick.
She says around the same time Frank got sick, he had taken a short contracted position with his previous workplace, Angel Gate Academy. They were going to bus in some kids from LA near where Frank and Angelina now lived, up to San Luis Obispo, where the school is located, and they wanted Frank to help.
They offered him $220 just to escort the bus of kids as a disciplinary teacher to San Luis and to ride it back.
So you just riding along to chaperone, basically?
Yeah.
But Angelina says she urged Frank against taking another job with their former employer.
When we worked at Angel Gate, we both realized or recognized that there was child abuse.
Angelina explains the culprit was a school instructor named Jack Parker.
I had witnessed a situation where he would look in the latrine, the bathrooms, while the girls were getting dressed. Then he would go into one of the bays, the quarters, and just stand there and watch the girls. I wasn't comfortable with that.
Frank?
Yes, son?
Angelina says when she shared her concerns with Frank back in April, he was horrified.
Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I know what I saw.
And because Frank loved the children that he worked with and he loved his job, he decided to take it a step further and report this to the Child Protective Services, CPS, and an investigation was launched.
According to Angelina, that's when Jack started making threats.
He looked at me and had said, if anybody jeopardize my job, I will kill them.
Detectives in Montebello, California, are speaking with Angelina Rodriguez about the untimely death of her husband, Frank.
Angelina believes Frank's former co-worker, Jack Parker, poisoned Frank as payback for reporting him to CPS.
You mentioned threats. What threats are there?
He looked at me and had said, if anybody jeopardizes my job, I will kill them. He looked at Frank and he went like this, and he went, right, dead on, eye to eye.
According to Angelina, this incident with Jack Parker was the main reason why they left Angelgate and decided to pursue employment somewhere else.
But Angelina says when Angelgate Academy reached out to Frank about the contracted position in late August, he felt it was his duty to help.
I had asked Frank not to steal, but Frank was an idealist. He thought everything will be okay.
On September 5th, Frank rode a bus up to San Luis Obispo with a group of middle school kids, escorting them to the academy.
When I get back, I said, so how is everybody there? They were great. They walked up to me, they hugged me, they missed me, and they gave me Gatorade and cookies and a snack. There was no animosity.
However, once he fell ill, she became extremely suspicious.
Let me back here a second. Did he say who offered him the Gatorade?
Angelina says it was none other than Jack Parker.
Apparently, the CPS investigation failed to find any proof of abuse, so Jack still had his same position at the academy.
She suspected that maybe he had given Frank snacks and drink with maybe some poison in it.
I don't know what else it could be. For him being as healthy as he was to...
Detectives share Angelina's concerns.
They do believe it's suspicious that he fell ill right after visiting Angelgate.
They're hoping the autopsy report can provide some clarity on whether or not Frank died of natural causes or some sort of poisonous substance like Angelina believed.
While they await the autopsy results, detectives investigate their new lead.
They want to speak to Jack Parker.
We ended up going up north to talk to him along with several other people and just find out where he was, if he had saw Frank, if he had any words with Frank at all.
When investigators sit down with Jack, he readily admits that he had a falling out with Frank a few months ago.
Of course it made me mad. Wouldn't it make you mad? I almost lost my job over that. Those rumors aren't true.
So did you decide to punish the person for putting you in that position?
Punish him? That's crazy.
He agreed that he was upset at this whole entire incident, but even though he was upset, he did not poison Frank.
He further mentioned that on September 5th, he did not see Frank at Angelgate.
I didn't even know he was here.
It was a last-minute request from Angelgate Academy, so when Frank got up there, no one knew he was coming. It was a surprise. So how would Jack know Frank was coming to have poison on hand?
When detectives follow up with Jack's co-workers, they confirm his account.
There is no way Jack would poison someone.
If there is anyone you should be looking at, it's Frank's wife.
Angelina?
While talking to detectives, Frank's former co-workers paint a troubling picture of his marriage to Angelina.
They report that although the parties had only been married for a very short period of time, the marriage was on the rocks.
As more details were coming to light, there were some red flags being raised.
Police soon learned that Frank isn't Angelina's first, second, or third husband. This is the fourth time she has been married, all by the age of 32.
I knew something was off the moment that she started working here.
How so?
She was so desperate to get any guy's attention.
People at Angelgate described her as a chameleon. And prior to her starting a relationship with Frank, she had this infatuation for another employee who was kind of a cowboy.
Many of her colleagues say that Angelina was dressing like a cowgirl day to day, trying to pique this man's interest. She even had bumper stickers on her car to kind of stamp her as a down-home cowgirl.
But when that didn't work out, she started talking to Frank.
Here's Frank, a very religious, very spiritual man, read his Bible religiously. So now she starts reading the Bible. She puts Jesus Christ bumper stickers on her car.
Frank ended up falling for her act.
She convinced him to marry her after like 3 months of dating. It all happened really fast.
Around that same time, Angelina started accusing Jack Parker of sexually abusing students at the school.
Do you think there's any validity to her claims?
Absolutely not. But Frank, he believed everything she said, which is why he reported Jack to CPS.
Former co-workers say Angelina really got in Frank's head and made him believe something about Jack that wasn't true.
Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I know what I saw.
Why do you think she'd make something up like that about Jack?
I have no clue. The woman's crazy.
Detectives agree that Angelina's behavior is rather concerning.
After traveling back to Montebello, the detectives decide to interview Frank's family to see if they share similar concerns about his marriage to Angelina.
Something definitely wasn't right with her.
They started to notice that there was trouble in paradise very early on.
They were fighting a lot and just weren't happy together.
Frank would call me on the phone a lot. But when they got married, the calls got less and less and less. And I remember one call that I got from him, and he was whispering. And in his whisper voice, he'd say, well, she doesn't want me to call the family anymore.
Then a few days before he died, I got a call from Angelina.
Angelina casually informed her that Frank had fallen ill.
She said he was going to the hospital frequently, and the hospital would send him home with no diagnosis except flu symptoms or ulcers or whatever it was.
We didn't think much of it because she didn't really say how serious it had gotten.
You think, okay, well, if he needs me, he'll call. And then the next call I get is in September.
That's when Angelina informed them that Frank had passed.
I remember I fell to the table and I started bawling. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to say goodbye. We all thought he had a heart attack.
But now, Frank's family suspects foul play.
I think Angelina did this to him.
And as suspicion of Angelina Rodriguez mounts, it seems she's starting to feel the heat.
She starts making these really odd phone calls to the investigators.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner?
The autopsy results have yet to come back. However, Angelina is really pushing for some results and is calling the detectives day in and day out.
Well, they don't have anything yet. It takes time for this type of stuff.
When the detectives eventually ask Angelina what is the rush, she tells them something very unexpected.
She needs Frank's death certificate so she can file an insurance claim.
She wanted that money.
After speaking with several of Frank Rodriguez's family members and former co-workers, Montebello detectives are starting to believe his wife, Angelina, had something to do with his untimely death.
Angelina has been calling detectives repeatedly asking about the results of Frank's autopsy.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner?
She needs Frank's death certificate so she can file an insurance claim.
She wanted that money.
But she wasn't going to get that money till there was a cause of death on the certificate.
The detectives learned that just 2 months prior, Angelina and Frank took out a $250,000 life insurance policy on Frank's life. This is in addition to 2 other hefty policies that Frank had from his previous employment.
And when detectives call the couple's insurance agent up, he reveals a very shocking piece of information.
He tells police that Angelina tried to file a claim on Frank's insurance policy less than 5 hours after he died.
This is certainly not the behavior of a grieving widow.
When the autopsy report finally comes in, it does little to help Angelina's cause.
The coroner was not able to determine Frank's cause of death.
They didn't find any physical trauma. They didn't find any aneurysm.
In addition, all the standard toxicology tests came back negative.
Is it possible that Frank wasn't poisoned at all and he really did die from natural causes?
While detectives continue their search for answers, Frank's family attends his funeral, where he's laid to rest with full military honors and a 21-gun salute.
At the funeral, Angelina, she did not shed a tear. Her demeanor was just cold. She didn't care that my brother had passed. There was nothing there.
But that's not the only thing that makes Frank's family uncomfortable.
She said something about oleander, and my family's looking at her like, what are you talking about, oleander? Well, that's a poison. Maybe they should test for oleander in a system.
Oleander is not typically included in the standard toxicology report.
There's no reason for Angelina to suspect that plant was used to poison Frank unless she knows more than she's letting on. So the family relayed this unsettling info to police.
And in the following days, Angelina gets even more persistent with her calls to detectives.
She was very adamant about asking us when we were going to arrest Jack. And she said she got a phone call from an anonymous number. It was a male voice telling her that he had something to tell her.
They said they wanted to tell me what was going on because they had a lot of respect for Frank, but they couldn't tell me who they were. And they said, you need to know a conversation I had.
He told her that he had spoken with Jack, and Jack had told him that he was responsible for killing Frank, and that Jack told him that they're never going to be able to prove it, and they're never going to be able to pin it on me.
They can't pin me. You can't pin me. It started breaking up, and all I heard was ask them about antifreeze.
Just like oleander, antifreeze wouldn't show up in a usual toxicology report. So investigators immediately order another round of tests to look for the poisons in Frank's body.
As detectives await the results, they examine Angelina's phone records, checking to see if she was being truthful about the anonymous call she received.
Angelina tells the police that she received that anonymous call at about 8 a.m. on October 19th.
But he looked into her phone records, and she did not receive any phone calls even near the time that she said she received a phone call.
And when the results from the new toxicology tests come in, it's just what detectives suspected.
He died from a combination of oleander and antifreeze.
Frank's cause of death was poisoning.
Now more than ever, investigators are confident Angelina Rodriguez killed her husband.
She's been the one indirectly leading investigators to these items, and detectives feel like they want to go in for a confession.
So they reached out to Jack Parker, the person Angelina originally accused of killing Frank.
We asked him if he would call Angelina and question her about why she's pointing the finger at him, and we could be listening to it and recording it on the other end.
They're hoping she'll slip and confess to the crime.
Jack agrees, and on December 13th, detectives move forward with their plan.
Hello?
Angelina?
Yes?
Why did you tell the police that I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
She was shocked when he called.
And detectives in Montebello, California are trying to catch murder suspect Angelina Rodriguez in a lie.
They believe she poisoned her husband and tried to frame his former co-worker, Jack Parker, for the crime.
We asked Jack if he would call Angelina and question her about why she's pointing the finger at him, and we could be listening to it and recording it on the other end.
Hello?
Angelina?
Yes?
Why did you tell the police that I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
She was shocked when he called.
But she didn't take the bait.
Who is this?
My main question, Angelina, is
How did you get my number?
I wanted Angelina. I'm just wondering how in the world this could ruin my life.
You know what? You need to call the investigator. I'm ending this conversation.
Okay, Angelina.
Angelina hung up that phone call and didn't provide Jack with any additional information once she was confronted.
Detectives are disappointed they didn't get the confession they need. But when Angelina's best friend, Lisa Wilson, comes forward, the investigation starts looking up again.
I have some information that I think will be useful to you.
Lisa and Angelina, their relationship was quite close. Like many friends, they tell all.
Sometimes we would complain to each other about our marriages, and Angelina didn't hold back when it came to her feelings about Frank.
Lisa tells the investigators that just a few months after their marriage, Angelina was already tired of Frank, and she began cheating on him.
There were various other men. And I asked her, why don't you just, get a divorce? And then she would go on and on about some life insurance policy.
If she divorced Frank, she'd get nothing. But if something happened to Frank, she'd get a hefty payout.
Angelina had been talking about poisons and stuff, and Angelina was very interested in antifreeze.
If that wasn't unsettling enough, a phone call Lisa had with Angelina a few days later sent shivers down her spine.
She asked Angelina what she was doing because she heard a noise, and Angelina told Lisa that she was making Frank a special milkshake because he liked milkshakes when he wasn't feeling well.
Oh, is Frank sick?
Angelina responded, not yet.
What is that supposed to mean?
Don't worry about it. I'll talk to you later.
I think she was poisoning him that very second.
Detectives wholeheartedly agree. There's no doubt in their minds Angelina poisoned Frank to death.
So on February 7th, 2001, nearly 5 months after Frank was killed, they head to Angelina's home with an arrest warrant.
The detectives decide that they were going to try one more time to elicit a confession out of Angelina.
Good morning. Morning. How's it going today?
They play it cool at first, so she'll think it's just a routine follow-up interview.
However, once investigators sit down with Angelina inside the home, they start to reveal why they're really there.
We got a little problem though.
What?
They told her that it was impossible for Jack to have poisoned Frank.
Unless he was visiting you guys on Friday, he couldn't have done this. The stuff that Frank had in his stomach, he had to ingest within a couple hours of his death. They found it in his stomach, the liquid, the antifreeze, and it has to, liquids purge every couple hours.
Angelina, did you give Frank antifreeze?
No, I didn't. I love my husband. I would not do that.
Even when confronted point blank, Angelina denies any involvement in her husband's murder.
Let's think about this a second. You're the only person with him. You're taking care of him. You're feeding and giving him liquids to drink. We have an abundant amount of information that points that you poisoned Frank.
I didn't poison my husband. I mean, I am willing to take a lie detector test. I did not poison my husband.
Angelina does not budge.
I did not kill my husband.
I'm gonna tell you, we don't believe you. Okay. You stand up.
Are you arresting me?
Yes, you are under arrest.
No! I didn't kill my husband.
Angelina breaks down into tears when she realizes that she is being arrested.
Oh, God, please. I didn't kill my husband, I swear.
But by now, detectives see through her act and don't buy a word she's saying.
She's charged with first-degree murder. Investigators believe this crime was planned out and premeditated.
With Angelina finally behind bars and her trial date rapidly approaching, investigators think this case is just about over.
But soon, detectives realize that Angelina has no intentions of going down quietly.
Yes, the detective signed one.
Angelina was trying to kill one of the witnesses in her case, and that witness ultimately was Lisa.
You just can't be a post-game burger at McDonald's, right? And you
can't beat the Angel Reese special. All right, let's break it down. It's a quarter pounder with my favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, and onions on a sesame seed bun. Get the Angel Reese special at McDonald's.
Discussion back when we were growing up. If one of us were to die, how would we know that we were in heaven and we were okay? And Frank told me, I'll come back as a butterfly. After my brother's passing, there was this butterfly that came to my back porch. And not just a normal butterfly. This butterfly, I could walk up to it. I got close enough. I could take pictures, videos of it. And I kept saying, Frank, is that you? Every day, that butterfly showed up. So I knew Frank was with me. He's my angel.
Wednesdays, new Soul Kitchen.
After nearly 6 months of building a strong circumstantial case against Angelina Rodriguez, Montebello authorities have finally arrested her for the poisoning death of her husband, Frank Rodriguez.
You are under arrest for murder.
No! I didn't kill my husband!
With Angelina behind bars, investigators feel confident they are finally about to close this case once and for all.
But while awaiting trial in a Los Angeles County jail, Angelina has made one last desperate attempt to secure her freedom.
She is trying to have the star witness, her once close friend Lisa, murdered.
I received a phone call from a jail employee that said that they were contacted by an informant who told them that Angelina was trying to get her to kill Lisa. She agreed to record conversations she was having with Angelina about how and when to kill Lisa.
You think that if they made it look like a suicide, they'd be bright enough to figure a way to do that? They can do it robbery gone bad, or they can make it look like a boyfriend gone mad. If they get cyanide, then, you know, that would do it real quick, you know what I'm saying?
Angelina had scenarios all the way from blowing up the house to maybe even poison her. So with that information, we devised a plan.
They essentially decide to fake Lisa's death.
Police informed Lisa of the plot by Angelina to take her life, and Lisa agrees to help the police.
We picked up some fake blood and a fake bullet hole that we could put on Lisa's head, and we basically took Polaroid photographs of Lisa on her bed in her bedroom, which Angelina would recognize.
Then an undercover officer posing as the hitman heads to the Los Angeles jail where Angelina is being held.
Hey, listen, something's happened to your friend. Hey.
Oh, what?
Right.
Within a few seconds, she's like, oh my God, I'm going home.
I am so ready to go home. I'm like, you know what? I'm going home.
And then by the end of the visit, typical Angelina, being very promiscuous, was asking the deputy about basically getting together and hooking up after she got out of jail.
You know, I gotta tell you, I feel really embarrassed.
Why?
Because, you know, what a way to start a conversation. What a blind, I guess you call it a blind date, huh?
However, little does Angelina know she won't be going on another date anytime soon.
If you learn anything from Angelina's case, it's that a big mouth gets you in big trouble.
And when her trial finally begins in October of 2003, prosecutors contend that just as Angelina attempted to take the life of her friend, she took the life of her husband through premeditated murder.
Based in large part on the testimony by Lisa Wilson, the prosecution alleged that Angelina was fed up with her marriage to Frank shortly after they got married and was looking for a way out of the relationship.
She was essentially bored of him and ready to move on to the next guy, but not without getting his money first.
Instead of filing for divorce like she had with previous husbands, Angelina devised a more sinister plot.
Because there was a large life insurance policy in place, this gave her the reason to want to kill Frank.
Prosecutors allege that in September of 2000, Angelina began poisoning Frank with oleander that she harvested herself.
The neighbors behind her had an oleander tree in their backyard that was growing over their fence, which she plucked from.
She used it in liquid form to put in Frank's food and drink.
But the oleander wasn't working fast enough.
The oleander made Frank ill enough to put him in the ER, but it did not kill him, and his demise did not come fast enough for Angelina.
Whatever the doctor gave me is working. I'm starting to feel a lot better.
Well, isn't that wonderful?
She stepped it up to a more potent poison and gave him antifreeze.
I made you a special treat.
According to the coroner's report, Angelina administered the final dose of antifreeze just hours before Frank's passing.
We were totally shocked that she would go to such lengths as antifreeze and oleander because it's such a slow death.
Had she not raised so much concern about it and let things take its course, there's a possibility that it might not have been detected.
She potentially could have gotten away with this murder.
But she wanted money. She was very greedy. It helped us solve the murder against Frank.
At the end of their deliberations, the jury announces their verdict.
The jury finds Angelina guilty of first-degree murder for financial gain.
But the story still isn't over yet.
At Angelina's sentencing hearing, prosecutors reveal a shocking new piece of information.
They uncovered evidence to suggest that Angelina murdered her 13-month-old daughter back in 1993.
Her daughter had died as a result of a pacifier nipple being lodged in her throat.
At the time, there was a recall on that brand of pacifiers, so Angelina sued the manufacturer.
She walked away with over $700,000 and an additional life insurance policy of $50,000 that she took out on the baby.
But now prosecutors have reason to believe it was Angelina's plan all along.
We had gotten pictures of the pacifier from the coroner's office. The recall said it could come unglued from the backing plate. But if you looked at these pictures, you could tell that there were jagged tears, but it was still glued. This pacifier didn't fail. It was basically, nipple was ripped off of it.
Prosecutors were hoping that this information would help the jury understand why Angelina needed to be sentenced to the harshest punishment possible.
The prosecution's strategy works.
The jury sentenced Angelina to death.
At the end, the judge said, "I have never witnessed such a stone-cold person in the way your behavior was with no emotion, and what you did to this person, it's disgusting."
Due to the statute of limitations, Angelina is never formally charged in the death of her 13-month-old daughter, but she'll have to spend the rest of her life paying for what she did to Frank Rodriguez.
As of today, Angelina is still on death row.
However, after a moratorium on the death penalty in California in 2019, there are no current plans to execute Angelina.
Angelina is a psychopath.
She was a manipulator. She knew exactly how to manipulate my brother, Frank.
Angelina was willing to do whatever she needed to do to get her money, and I believe wholeheartedly in my mind that if she got away with Frank's murder, she's one of those people that wouldn't stop. She'd do it again and again and again until she was caught.
The way she murdered him, it was sickening. She had no intentions of ever loving my brother. And that's sad because my brother loved her. He was just one of those loving, caring people.